Thanks for joining, everyone. My name is Rob Anton, President and one of the founding partners at Next Edge Capital. With us is Chuck Marleau, Chief Investment Officer and co-founder of Palos Wealth. They are the sub-advisor to the CMP Flow-Through Limited Partnerships, as well as managing the CMP resource class, so the fund that these partnerships roll into. The goal of today was to provide an update on the 2025 Flow-Through Limited Partnership, as well as the 2026 one that we closed about a month and a half or so ago, and then provide a little bit of an overview on the resource fund as well. And then we'll open up for question and answers. So we won't be too long, 15, 20 minutes max, and then we'll stay around and take some questions. So the 2025 Flow-Through Limited Partnership closed at the end of September of 2025. There were 47 investments made, within that portfolio prior to year end last year, and performance has been quite good. This fund will have its liquidity event sometime around mid-September. It will roll to the CMP resource class. You'll have an opportunity to either continue to hold that fund or sell it, and we will have a flow-through offering in the marketplace, which we anticipate launching at the beginning of August. The 2026 Flow-Through Limited Partnership was a little bit more recent. We closed that offering at the end of April of this year. And, Chuck was going to give an update on the status of that portfolio as well. So why don't we start with the 2025 Flow-Through Limited Partnership, Chuck? I know that you have been busy, exiting some positions, that you entered into, in Q4 of last year. Why don't you give a little bit of an update on where that stands, that portfolio?
Perfect, Rob. Thank you very much for everybody who's attending the call. Like Rob said, CMP 2025 closed in 2025 in the month of September, and we were successfully able to deploy all the money in 2025 in flow-through. Approximately 75% was critical and 25% was precious. Obviously, we are getting ready to in the process of rolling this vehicle into the CMP Resource Fund. So we did make a few adjustments in the portfolio. We basically looked at the portfolio, and in the CMP 2025, there's probably 8 positions that we want to roll and to keep into our resource fund. Those are, names like COSA, First Phosphate, Saga, and others, like Vizsla Copper as well, and White Gold as well. So we have about 8 of these positions that we want to roll into the resource fund. And we're obviously going to have to right size this position because we don't want to be overweight into the resource fund. What that means is that when we're getting ready to roll, we're already approximately 50% in cash right now. Obviously, we are now definitely not forced sellers in any such way, so we are opportunistic. As we get to the month of August, into the month of September, once we roll, we'll probably be closer to that, 75% cash. And, as a position that I want to keep and roll into the resource fund as those management team executed on their exploration, and obviously maybe create a larger resources or expand their mineralization zone, and we want to keep these positions into our resource fund. So we had quite a pretty successful CMP 2025. I think the NAV is around $27, and don't forget, half of that is already in cash. And a lot of people will say, well, what are you doing with the cash? Well, the cash is at least in money market cash equivalent instrument, at least giving some kind of return to our unit holders in CMP 2025. So like Rob said, very successful. I'm very happy with our first CMP 2025 LP, and I think it's going to be a very successful roll into our resource. I was not expecting 8 companies to graduate, and so 8 did. So I'm pretty excited about that.
And
Uh,
Chuck, before we talk about the 2026 one, I maybe have one question to ask. So, on average, the market cap on the 47 investments that you deployed for the 2025 flow through LP was an average dollar weighted market cap of around 90. But, if you actually take out one of the big positions, probably closer to the 70 mil market cap area. Is it, as you've raised 50% cash in the portfolio, within the last, 6 months. So that's quite good. Do you have to wait for, news releases on these things in order to exit, or how is there a strategy that you have to do in order to exit some of these positions, or was there quite ample liquidity in most of the names you had to get out whenever you wanted to get out?
No, unfortunately, there's not much liquidity in most of these investments, Rob. As you can just say, yeah, if we're investing in very micro cap mining companies. So what we like to see is obviously, we have a guideline when we can expect some kind of results from these exploration companies, all the way from a drilling activity or field work results, or even a resource that would come out. Those are catalysts for us to, and obviously if it's extraordinary and we want to keep, like, for example, on those 8 companies that we want to roll, we will, probably just right size those companies and making sure that we want to make sure that those are coming. But yes, we take that, that news as an opportunity. And same thing, unfortunately, when companies, told us that it would be some kind of exploration results, and we haven't heard anything, we take that as a negative, and then we will be more of a forced seller into those names.
Good. Maybe let's move on to the 2026 flow through limited partnership, which we closed that transaction at the end of April. You've been very active over the last month and a half or so deploying capital. Maybe give a status on that. So how's that going?
Yeah. So the CMP 2026, in hindsight, we had a kind of a bit of a late start in deploying the money in April, which in turn was very beneficial for us because obviously the commodity market or exploration market got a little soft. Unfortunately, it got softer as we went into the summer months. Right now, we still see quite a bit of softness, not only on precious metals, but we see it on silver, we see it on tungsten, we see it on copper, we see it on nickel, and many. So it was a bit of a blessing. So our timing was good. It allowed us to basically provide or give us as a price giver and a price taker when it came to issuing some flow through. Unfortunately, even at some point I was getting about 10% premiums on some of these criticals, but when the market changes, wants to settle, the stock price continued a little lower. So it's definitely a little bit of a harder environment in 2020 for CMP 2026. But again, because of our timing, because we still have a little bit of cash right now and still continue to deploy, we are, getting some pretty interesting opportunities when it comes to some flow through exploration. So at the moment,
And what percentage do you have allocated now, and how many names would that translate into?
so right now, deals that I committed and has settled, we are 91% invested. And if I take deals that are basically that I'm dealing with exploration companies that I provided terms to them, I'm more around 96%. I used to be at 100, but however, a few deals fall away. They didn't want to take my 9% premium, and I say fine, I'll go find another opportunity somewhere else. I'm very disciplined in that way, especially that now, like I said, we're in a price giver kind of environment, not a price taker. Especially as the commodity market and this is all driven with the extraordinary strength in the US dollar that we've seen.
And how many names have you allocated to so far, Chuck? And maybe give an idea on what kind of critical mineral allocations you made.
Yeah, so on the allocation between critical and precious, again, we're going to be very similar to 2025. I think we're going to end around 30% precious. And then why is the precious a little higher? Usually that was a huge flavor of the month in 2025, and we're finally seeing some, very good opportunity on the precious metal side where, some projects, especially in the Yukon, were not even touchable because the premium were so huge. But now kind of markets came down, so we saw some opportunities in the precious side. But where we're going to land, we're definitely going to land around the 70% critical and have approximately 30% precious. On names that we have, I would say just, quickly one, two. I think we're around 30, 34 names at this point, around, give or take. And so our NAV rate now is around $18. So you can see that obviously there's premium that we paid plus the market conditions that we're dealing with. But again, I'm very opportunistic in some of these exploration programs where we can have some pretty significant winners as some of these exploration results come out and some of these resources. So I think I'm constructive on our CMP 2026. And if you want my take, I do think that the US dollar is significantly overbought at this point. And this is all due because of geopolitical risk change with the Iran situation. But I think that's going to play out. And once more, I think the market will start continuing more on fiscal irresponsibility, which should bring the US dollar weaker.
And as far as certain projects, like are you investing in uranium or copper, or like is it a very broad range of critical minerals that you're involved in, or is there certain things that you're favoring on that side over other things?
So we definitely continue to like tungsten. We definitely continue to like uranium. We definitely like copper now better than we did previously. Especially on the copper exploration company, we still, finally getting some value there. We also have some specialty mining, like for phosphate would be same, for example, a high grade phosphate. That's something that we're definitely involved. So we navigate really in all different kinds of critical minerals. But yes, we're still more constructive on uranium, tungsten, and some specialty rare earth / critical minerals. And we're constructive on silver and gold here for sure, long term.
And were there any names of the 34 thus far, the 2026 deal that you actually invested in 2025?
Yes, for example, First Phosphate would be one, Saga Metals would be one. So yes, there's a few names that we are constructive and we want to continue. Now, I got to make sure that I don't fall above that 10% threshold, because I definitely don't want to start doing early warning reports. So I have to make sure I navigate my position and keep them below that 10% ownership on some of these exploration companies. But yes, the answer is yes.
That makes sense. And approximately how many companies do you think you saw this year to, get to that 34 names? Or is it hard to keep track?
Well, we try to, how it works is that we have an introductory call about 15 minutes with every single exploration company, or else there would be not enough time in a day to be able to manage all these. And then I have multiple exempt market dealers basically providing me kind of a funnel that comes through them. So if they don't go through and doesn't get approved by my own EMD, that's why you have to find your exempt market dealer that you trust, because you don't want to be shown basically something that's not in your parameter or your criteria that you're looking for. So with that, I would say I've probably seen about approximately, I would say 80 to 100 exploration companies, I would say.
Wow. Let's move over to the CMP resource class. So, that fund, since you took it over on Jan 1st, 2025, has done quite well. Managed obviously with a bit of a larger cap bias than these flow-through limited partnerships. I think the last time I looked at, I think the average dollar weighted market cap of the positions were in excess of $5 billion. Up about 6% year to date. You were up more, obviously softer markets recently, so come off a little bit. And, obviously had a stellar 2025 up 175%. I believe there's somewhere to the tune of 54 positions in the portfolio, not including the warrants. Maybe provide a little overview on how you're running that fund and kind of various different things that you kind of like within or how you've positioned the portfolio.
Right. So you're absolutely right. I mean, we are, I think, up approximately 8% for this year. Not to say 2 weeks ago we were up 25%. So you can imagine the volatility that we're seeing in the resource space right now. And you're right. We do upgrade our portfolio. One of the criteria that we want when we come to the CMP resource is that we want the exploration company to actually have a resource. So it cannot be purely an exploration company. It has to have an actual resource. And then we want to basically see, some twinning work. We want to basically see some step outs for sure, but we also want to see infill drilling. So we want to make sure that these companies are, in the next step of that exploration to sell the company, or to bring this to a real mine. So with that said, where we like, or the majority of the portfolio is that, is that 1 to 2 years away from basically becoming a real mine, or basically a large project that's going to be coming online. So we navigate in larger caps for sure, because obviously they were kind of de-risking, but there is still obviously risk of getting these things to the finish line. But we're well diversified. No position is greater than 3%. We want to make sure that we're diversified in such a way. We are invested in multiple different jurisdictions, all the way from in South America, in Mexico as well, in the U.S. as well, in Canada as well, also in Europe, in Finland or Norway. So we sort of just, there is even Africa, some Africa, but again, we try to keep the African exposure a little less. So we try to start to diversify ourselves from jurisdiction place. We try to stay in a very friendly jurisdiction. But yeah, that's where we are.
Yeah, thanks. Great overview. If anyone has any questions, just please feel free to enter them into the chat function at the bottom of your screens. I thought that was a pretty good overview. There wasn't a major agenda to today, but we did want to update everyone on the progress of creating liquidity for the 2025 flow through limited partnership, which will be rolling in mid-August, as well as the progress on investment on the more recently closed 2026 flow through limited partnership. So I think you did a pretty good job on identifying those. So, remind everyone again, we are planning on launching our second flow through offering, in 2026, in and around August 1st. Expect the syndicate to be the same, as prior. And the 2025 flow through limited partnership will roll into the CMP resource class, sometime in mid-August. And, if the strategy is to liquidate that fund and roll it into a new flow through offering, we will have a deal in the market place at that point in time. And if you chose to, continue to hold the resource class, we're obviously very happy with that. That transaction from the 2025 flow through LP to the CMP resource class happens on a non-taxable event basis. So you can continue to hold that fund and defer an eventual capital gains indefinitely, as long as you hold that fund. If there's any questions, please enter it. And if not, we'll conclude the call. Please feel free to reach out to myself or anyone on the Next Edge team if you have any questions, or if we can be of help in any way. I don't see any questions in the chat function, Chuck. So we will just wrap this up.
Maybe one comment, Rob. In the resource fund, we do also diversify ourselves a little bit out of the kind of critical minerals. For example, we do have a 5-6% exposure to oil and gas, mostly gas in a sense. So, so we are looking at other resources to diversify away also from the typical critical and precious metals. We also invest in a salt mine, for example, as well. So again, so we diversify, but again, all in the resource with, in addition, energy overlay there. So just wanted to put that out.
No, good point, Chuck. Very good. Well, thanks for joining, Chuck, and thank you all for dialing in as well. So have yourselves a great day. Bye.
Thank you.